now we'll open up to questions from the floor. So we've got 2 minutes. Over there.
It's on? It's good? Okay, great, thank you. I want to thank all the panellists. Thank you so much for your presentations. My question is specifically around the idea of law school reform. Really, really fascinated by the work you guys have been doing, and I was just wondering about its application to other law schools, particularly here with Monash and Melbourne. You know, do you think this kind of research is persuasive? Have you heard anything from other law schools around Australia, and would the study need to be replicated to be more powerful?
We've been contacted by quite a few law students around Australia and even a couple internationally. We've had students, I actually ended up meeting a group of students from UQ who wanted to start a group up there. We've had students from UNSW, from Melbourne Uni, write to us. We wish that we could sort of, you know, that was part of the reason that we were also pushing for more resourcing from the law school, because we would love to be able to provide more support, but to those people we've sort of been, you know, we've said, well look, here's all the data and we can send you through our logo, and maybe we can share a website and things like that. But I don't know, I guess it's probably a bit of a contextual call in terms of who's your dean and your executive and what it would take to convince them. The data that we produced in the Australian context, there hasn't been a huge amount of data collected, but actually there's a couple of academics at the ANU who have done a couple of studies now that have, for example, tracked 2 cohorts of first-year students from their first week of first year through to the end, and looked at the transformation in their values and things like that. And self-esteem as well. There's been the Brain and Mind Institute, which, you know, the Australian of the Year, Patrick McGorry, is attached with, did a detailed study into the mental health side, but that necessarily included systemic criticism. So, and there is a weight of data in the US. There is, you know, 50 years worth of data, because we're using, you know, a system created by Professor Langdell of the US, who wrote this curriculum in the 1800s. So people have been gathering this information about the transformation of students' values and so on for a long time, and I would argue that there's now sufficient data in Australia to demonstrate that, you know, that the same thing is going on here, but it probably doesn't hurt to have more and more surveys.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. I think in some ways it can be useful to look at your direct context and really build up a bit of evidence in your direct context, because that's what you know. And you can also see really clearly, like, the things that the pressure points, I guess, that you can use in your law school to try and get some change happening. So, yeah.
And it is also a good way to then build your campaign, because you can say, okay, so you all responded to the survey, you're already kind of part of this, now look at what we've done with your responses and your answers, and that way people feel that they're interested in the report because they have written something that's in there and so on.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just answer that, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just I actually I've been writing a grant application for the PLN to put out a public interest careers guide, and I had to lean really heavily on your report because I couldn't find a whole lot of hard data. So yes, it's a really good idea, and it would have been really useful for us if we had a Melbourne-based, because we were applying to the Victoria Law Foundation. If we'd had a Victorian sample, it would have been really useful. They accepted the ANU stuff, but yeah, I would certainly support more people doing research.
Yeah, and sorry, just really quickly though, the other great thing about doing your own research is that each time you do research with the student population, you also raise awareness, and you also get students talking, and they realise that they're not alone in thinking that they're missing something or that they're crazy because they don't want to go into corporate law. So it's also a really good way to actually build momentum and get people talking.
Do we have more questions?
Actually, I've got a couple of questions, and you just sort of sparked another one. And I guess I'm an example of a later lawyer as well. So in terms of law school reform, you know, I'm quite curious to see how the law schools are going to evolve in the future in terms of taking on later students as well. It took me ages when I was at ANU doing my GDLP but they did eventually agree to change their references to Dear Younger Lawyers, and eventually it became Dear Soon to be Admitted Lawyers. So that was good, they did change it. But yeah, that's a new development for law schools as well. And it kind of ties in too with what the panel's been talking about in terms of having a broader life experience and you know, having that knowledge of previous occupations or previous community engagement, and that if the regional networks are looking for more lawyers to get out there who have some experience in addition to, you know, they might still be green in terms of law, but you know, perhaps that later lawyer network might be an opportunity. Related to all of that, perhaps too, is I've just been sniffing around the Law Institute, and I don't know if anyone is here from the Law Institute, but I was really interested to see some stats, and the number of members that they have, I think, is around 16,000 in Victoria, and there's a category, you can sort of join the Law Institute and you have a category of, you know, what type of lawyer you are and so on. They have this category which is people who don't have a current employment relationship, which is separate to students and so on. And that stat might include perhaps women who have practiced as lawyers and been out of the scene for a while, having children and perhaps not working fully yet, but still keeping engaged. Might also include, you know, retired barristers. Whatever, it's huge. It's 37%. So I said to a meeting of Law Institute people, would that be 37% of lawyers are unemployed? Perhaps. It's not, because we know there's other things in there. But it's still possibly high, a high number of unemployed lawyers. Are there the jobs in the rural area?
Great, thanks for sharing that, Scat. Well, on the website, it's been going since Law Week last year. Most of the jobs there have been put on by our sector, the community sector. The private lawyers are saying, oh, we just, they come and knock on the door, or, you know, it's my nephew, or there's a lot of word of mouth goes on in the bush. So that, again, I'm talking about cultural change. Are the jobs out there? Yes, the jobs are out there, but they're not being advertised. If they are advertised, it's sort of like they don't have the HR resource within the town or the community to actually handle. It's all too hard. It's not a crazy system. But the other thing is on-call lawyer. They call it the on-call career. And there's some research done by DY just this year on the on-call career, and I think you're onto something with all that. And definitely in terms of, as a cohort, people who want to make that change, but perhaps have paid their mortgage off before they make the change.
One more question?
One more question?
This is probably more by way of comment, but I just wanted to draw a bit of an arc between the law school reform presentation to say that spoke really deeply to me, because I went through exactly the same scenario at law school as the one you described. So I went in with a set of ideals and found myself in the sausage factory at the end. But also perhaps to add to the arsenal of your plug, Roy, for CLC work, and I guess to promote it as a serious career option to people who are maybe considering attempting to cultivate their ideals through the sort of pro bono contingent of the Big Four firm lifestyle. What I observed firsthand working in a large firm was that although a lot of resources are committed towards partnering with CLCs, and especially with specialist CLCs, what tends to happen, and what I saw in my experience, is that the attrition rates within the firms are so high. I think the stat that I heard was something like the people that have realised that there's something more out there, or that will be a significant proportion of them. So the people that are trained up to work in partnership with CLCs as part of their pro bono work are often leaving before they can actually reinvest the expertise that they've spent all these resources on. And so they're constantly retraining their staff to take over the same files. I work on a victims comp file that have seen 7 lawyers over the course of 18 months working on it. And this is with an Indigenous woman who had gone through horrific experiences, had experienced rape from the age of 7. And for her file to be handled through that many lawyers meant that each person who took it on really had to give their trust again, had to learn the file, which takes a lot of resources, and it just was a hugely inefficient way of delivering anything back to those projects. So I don't know if that is useful, but it might be a way of making the argument that really the only thing that does the job of a community legal service is working in a community legal service.
Well, I'd endorse that. It just occurs to me as you're telling that tale about that woman and her experience, that to me smacks of continuing abuse of that person. Putting her through that process is a form of re-traumatising her every single time, and unacceptable. And in terms of those pro bono programs in the big firms with CLCs, I know of a number of them that involve making boardrooms available and the catering that goes along with it for CLCs to have their annual general meeting, and that's enough to get the tick. Or making the firm's publishing budget available to publish their annual report or a report on a project, and that's enough to get a tick. The ones that really work in my view, one example is North Melbourne Legal Service that has a continuing relationship with 2 firms and the Victorian Government Solicitor's Office for secondments. So they have long-term, 12 months, maybe 2 years seconded positions, and out of that they've got really good staff who've stayed on and joined the staff of the CLC, and then they're replaced by another secondee. So they're the pro bono schemes that I think have the most impact and are genuinely helpful to clients and to the centres. But totally agree with your sentiment that nothing replaces going and working for a CLC. As I said, the pay isn't good, but you get a lot more benefit out of it. And to reflect on the comment about lawyers who aren't currently engaged in employment, anecdotally I would say that you'll find a lot of those lawyers volunteering in legal centres, sometimes because they can volunteer at night and during the day they've got other responsibilities. My question is, why can't we find a way for them to work and be paid at night rather than necessarily being volunteers? CLCs can be a very flexible environment where that sort of staffing structure could be created.